Thank you so much for joining us for this special edition where we're bringing you a big conversation. In the past couple of days, we have all noticed and focused our attention on the Appointments Committee of Parliament because of the vetting sessions that have gone on. Some amount of drama, some moments where we've gone into major reflection because of some of the suggestions that these nominees have put to our thoughts. But the most important thing here is that this afternoon for the sports sector, we are having this well, thank you so much for joining us for this special edition where we're bringing you a big conversation. In the past couple of days, we have all noticed and focused our attention on the Appointments Committee of Parliament because of the vetting sessions that have gone on. Some amount of drama, some moments where we've gone into major reflection because of some of the suggestions that these nominees have put to our thoughts. But the most important thing here is that this afternoon for the sports sector, we are having this conversation with the nominee who now has gone through vetting and is awaiting full approval by Parliament, after which he will be sworn in by His Excellency the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, and then work will begin officially at the rechristened Sports and Recreation Ministry. Honorable Kofi Adams, who is also the Member of Parliament for the Buem constituency, emerging from the Oti region of Ghana, is one who's been in politics for many years. Now, when his name came up, there were those who had conversations about what he's seen in the sports sector. Of course, even before he was vetted, he had major conversations within the media, obviously because he's had a very good relationship with various media houses over the years and has also played a very key role when it comes to major political figures, including our departed former president, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings. Now, let's get into what makes him up as a man, his big picture, and where the focus is going to be. Like I said, he's had many conversations, and by now, we'd all be in on what he wants to do, what direction he wants to go. But of course, there are many other elements to his life that many may not know, even after the dozens and dozens of interviews that he's done here on our various platforms and Newsfile and all the other platforms on Joy News and others. Thank you very much for joining us on this very special edition. Honorable, congratulations.
Thank you.
Your vetting session was it was relatively short.
Yeah, one of the shortest also. In terms of the number of minutes that people spend, you can count mine as one of the shortest, because anything less than an hour, considering what has been happening there, means that you spent very little time. But it may also be the case that you are, when you are very well known and your activities are so well known, then there become very little to be asked of you. And also, when you are very well known and you are being sent to a sector that you've had very little to do, there will be less to be asked of you from that sector. Truth be told, in terms of my political activity, I've had very little to do with what? Sports. So maybe less was found about me in that area to be asked of. So we thank God, and it's happened.
It's happened. So we're waiting the eventual confirmation, and then we'll all support you for His Excellency's swearing in for you to begin work. Now, let's get into your mind a bit. Sometimes we all wonder what kinds of things run through your mind when you're preparing yourself for moments like this. You are an experienced politician. You are very familiar with the doings of Parliament. This is your home turf. So obviously there was not much of a problem for you. I actually monitored you seated on the table with your, one of your colleagues was being vetted. I'm talking about Honorable Sam George. You sat there. So as you sat there and, they kept going and they kept going, how are you feeling? Were you
Well,
waiting?
like you said, it's something that we've done over and over. I've been on a number of panels, sometimes questioning and listening to persons. And since I entered Parliament, I've been a member of the Public Accounts Committee. And by the nature of our work, we question a lot of persons. I've been on the Defense and Interior Committee as a member. Later, I became ranking for Security and Intelligence Committee. and also a member of the Independent Bodies Committee of Parliament. And so we've been involved in things such as this. So for me, it wasn't anything new. It wasn't anything that one needed to be so worried about, because I asked myself whether there was ever any question that you will be asked in terms of what we said as a party that we're going to be doing in the sports and recreational arena that I cannot speak to. If I'm asked any technical thing that doesn't fall in the domain of the sports person or what the party has indicated we will do when voted into power, I gladly will let them know that, well, this is not one of the things that I have considered, and when I get into the ministry and it comes up, there will be technical persons that I will rally to deal with such situations. And so I went there very well prepared. I wasn't applying for a job of a coach. I wasn't applying for a job of a technical person. I have been asked to go and offer leadership to that ministry that involves various disciplines, various sporting activities. So it is all about leadership, how you can lead people, both technical minds, those in the sports industry, the athletes, the sports persons, to at least achieve what the government and by extension the state have set out to do. And that I knew I was very well prepared. And when questioned on it, from any angle, I was going to answer them.
Let's also veer a bit into your personal interest as an individual. Obviously, you grew up in an era where it wasn't too attractive to want to play sport professionally.
Yep.
Did you ever find yourself toying with the idea of representing, going into maybe athletics or, at senior high school level? And all that?
Well, at the time we grew up, school sports was something that was taken a bit serious. Even though it didn't send people too far, we used to really enjoy it. And I remember in a village where I was born and grew up, my hometown, we didn't even do the inter-schools at one place. A number of communities will come together for the interco, and you needed to be up till class 4, or what some people later call stage 4, to qualify to travel with the team to the next location. And so when you are in class 2, class 3, you just keep praying to get to stage 4 or class 4, as we used to call it then. So you qualify to also travel to the next town that may be hosting the inter-schools, because it was the joy of the moment. As bad as the pitches were, we enjoyed doing something and on it. You athletes were running barefooted. Sometimes the pitch, the tracks with thorns, with undulating holes everywhere. You run and fall, not because you don't know how to run, but because of the undulating nature of the tracks that you would have to run on. But it all was joy. We did it for the fun of it, much more like the recreation of it. It didn't see moving too far with it. A few persons who had opportunity later, and when you go to the secondary schools and you continue, found themselves taking it a bit further. But it tells me one thing, that as a country, we must invest heavily in grassroots sports and make sure that at least we have standard facilities in communities and districts, so that the potentials, the talents that people have could be unearthed. And when they get unearthed, we should have a place where we can assemble them for them to be given the necessary training, which must start very early.
Honorable, there's a lot to deal with in that area. I like the passion and the enthusiasm, but there's a lot to deal with in that area, in the sense that when you look at our planning, when you go and you look at general master plans for our respective communities, it's out there. You see that there are layouts for schools. These schools have, allocated areas for pitches and all of that. The issues of encroachment, the issues of immediately switching over the use of these lands for other purposes aside these educational facilities and sports facilities. So obviously there's a major challenge as well over there.
Well, Nathaniel, there's so much irresponsibility around the country that we need to deal with. That we have people who have sold lands and sold everything to the point that they want to even sell school assembly grounds and playing fields. Because for them, all they think about is that education is just about the classroom where you sit and have classes. They don't care about playing field. So you even have a number of private schools that charge very exorbitantly, but all they have are classrooms. No space for even school assembly. If they have to organize any school assembly, it's within one of the classrooms. That is wrong. Community development, community centers, recreational centers, community pitches, all today have been turned into something else. Either they have become shopping malls or they have become residential facilities. That is wrong. Do you now see why a lot of non-communicable diseases seems to be so rampant these days? Because we do not have centers where even people can go and have recreation, play around, and engage in some physical activity. We wake up from an air-conditioned bed to sometimes air-conditioned bathroom, finish bathing, dressing up, jumping into an air-conditioned car, being dropped in a school or an office that is air-conditioned. You leave there, go to restaurants that are air-conditioned, get back home into an air-conditioned. Very little physical exercise, very little space for that. We need to begin to change the mindset of the people to know that no matter how much money you have, that space for physical well-being, for physical exercises must be left. And so one of the things I'll be looking into and looking at will be my engagement with the Minister for Local Government and the Minister for Education to make sure that the planning and settlements that are done are not encroached on, especially spaces that have been earmarked as recreational spaces. They must be protected. If you want to destroy everything, if you don't want markets, we don't want all the things that I think we need for recreational spaces, we must leave them as such. We must not bring them down and raise blocks. Let's leave them as open space. Look, if you travel out a bit, even in countries where we have ice, we have snow, certain part of the year, they have not destroyed every open space and raised superstructure that because we have some periods of the year that there will be snow, there will be ice, and it will be so cold, and we can't have physical activities in the open. Let's bring everything down and turn everything like indoor. They may create a small indoor space and leave the rest as open, so as to be able to engage in physical activity. Sometimes people go to bike there, do walk, sometimes sit just to meditate, and so on and so forth, perform all kinds of cultural activities. We must do same here. We can't have wall-to-wall situations that you cannot do anything. No, it's wrong. Go to our beach fronts in some communities. There is no space for even the community people to have access to their beaches because people have taken over and build wall to wall, wall to wall, wall to wall. So no space left for anybody to have access to the beachfront. That should not be the case. We must become a country that is serious, that want to utilize its spaces and make those spaces available to the people and to the various communities that are near such environment. So we need to look at it. I'm happy that seriously His Excellency the President thought through and created this ministry with a certain focus, now highlighting recreation, so that people may not think that, oh, because I don't intend to do sports at the competitive and enduring and excellence level, there's no need for that space. Now, recreation has become part, and so you know that sports as recreation is also there. You don't need to be a Carl Lewis or be someone interested in running a high race or playing soccer for its competitive nature. You can play it also for the fun of it. You can play it for its inclusive nature. You can play it for the peace that it brings. You can play it for the fun, the love, the joy of it, the enjoyment of it. So the recreational activities would also be another area that we're going to push. And these I'm not going to be doing with just the Minister for Local Government, but even the Tourism Minister, because that will also aid the Tourism Ministry in achieving its set objectives. So we have quite a task, but I do know that we will work very hard to succeed.
If you just joined us, we're having this conversation with Minister Designate for Sports and Recreation, Honorable Kofi Adams, who's also a Member of Parliament for the Buem constituency, delving into some key issues that he's raised. Some of them there on the floor of Parliament as he went through his vetting. Some of them in previous conversations that he has had since this major announcement was made and since the whole fraternity received the news of his appointment by His Excellency the President of the Republic. Well, let's delve into how practical some of the ideas are. Now, we've been talking about funding, and it's a very big bug that has bugged the sector for many years now. Bringing back the GET fund is, drawing from the GET fund is one thing that you've expressed interest in wanting to do. The sports fund is one that we've talked about, time and again, but yeah. Government in, government out, we just do not seem to be able to get the job done. I'm talking about laying it before Parliament, going through all of the processes and ensuring that it is passed into actual law so that we can have our fund, our sources, we can have our deeds, I'll start with our trust deeds and all of that, and get the fund running so that we can benefit.
You're
How
right.
then do we practicalize this when you get when you start working?
You're right, that sports funding has been a challenge. If you ask any sports minister from past, and maybe even to my very good self today, what is one big challenge that confronts the industry? I'll tell you, funding. And so the issue of sports fund is something that have run through, and it cannot continue to be a problem that must be running through.
Honorable, before you continue, is it that we don't, what have you identified from from observing from the background? Because like you said, these parties have been in power. Your party has been in power before. The MPP have gotten the opportunity before. What is it? Is it that there's no interest by you, the legislators, who are given the opportunity on the select committee? What exactly is the problem?
Well, I don't know whether it is the no interest or whatever, but whatever it is a problem that we must find solution to. And so the promise by the NDC this time around to establish a sports fund must be worked on. Whether it is going to be through a sports lottery, whether it's going to be taking percentages of some taxes that already exist. Like, for example, people have proposed that there are some taxes on sports betting activities that is generally emanating from sports, and so a percentage of the tax that the state gets from sports betting should go into the fund to support sports, because the more the sports grow, the bigger the tax component that also comes to the state. So if a component of the tax that comes to the state can be placed into a fund to help in growing what will feed the state more, why not? That's one option that have been looked at. And of course, I've mentioned a sports lottery, which will be run such that all the proceeds that comes, that one goes direct into the sports fund. You mentioned earlier when I talked about getting something, a percentage from the GET fund, of course. This is because school sports is very critical and it's now part of sports. The new act creates for the establishment of School Sports Development Agency. So that will become a new agency that the sports ministry will be running, but then
You're talking about the Sports Authority Act?
Yes, the Sports Authority Act. I'm saying it creates for the establishment of School Sports Development Agency. And so if that is going to happen, aside the National Sports Authority, which is one agency, we're going to have these other agencies that will be responsible for school sports. And it must be funded. If it has to be funded, what are the possible sources? Aside the Sports Fund General, we may have to begin to look at the Ministry of Education to assist. Where can they assist from? I think a percentage of GET fund could be used in supporting the organization of school sports and its development. We can also follow up with the local government ministry for them to look at the District Assembly Common Fund. So a percentage is also in their formula for sharing of that fund. A percentage will be allotted for the grassroots sports, because already per the Act, every district is supposed to have the district sports unit that will be chaired by a nominee of the chief executive, with others participating. So if they have that unit already taken care of in the Act, we need to find a way of funding the activities that they will be involved in. So a portion, or in the formula for the distribution of the District Assembly Common Fund, when it's to be laid in Parliament, we must have a component that goes to support grassroots sports. So a lot of options are being looked at. Of course, funding from the private sector, the PPP arrangements would also have to be looked at. Enhancing sponsorship and benefits that goes to sponsoring agencies and institutions will be looked at. If companies know that if we sponsor sports, especially those that are described as less known, I don't accept that description though, but let's take it that that is what it has been known, that the less known ones, those who pick them up
underfunded,
and push and their funding into that sector will have some tax rebates given them. So when they know that, oh, if we do this, we can get a rebate. A company that may be paying the state only maybe 500,000 as tax may be willing to invest, say, $1 million Ghana cedi in supporting sport or promoting sport. So the state would have benefited even more than how much they would have gotten if such institution is left to pay only tax without sponsoring sports. Because when they sponsor the sports and you do well indirectly, it helps in your GDP. The contribution of sports now to our GDP is very low. I think it's less than 2%, about 1.4% or so. But we need to work even harder to raise this. Many countries have done it, and they've done it so well. Look,
And
Spain.
these figures are coming from the Statistical Service?
Yeah. Spain, for example, at a point went so low, they decided to realign, redraw, and when they did that, they won so many laurels. England did same. They sat there, realized that, okay, funding was a challenge. Let's introduce some sports lottery. When they did that, they have so much to be able to fund their sports. Look at Uruguay, our
2010
people we don't want to. They did it against us in 2010, and they repeated in Brazil also in 2014.
You mean in Qatar?
In Qatar, rather, in Qatar,
2022.
rather, yeah, 2022 in Qatar, when we thought that we were going to at least pay them back for that thing that Luis Suarez cost us in 2010 in South Africa. I was at the stadium that day, and after the match ended, I remained on my seat, couldn't move.
Wow.
Look at their population. A very small
Country, that's true.
less than 5 million. But they've taken their sports so seriously, mobilized resources, and have funded infrastructure that you have available pitches in communities. So you have very young kids who have opportunity to exhibit their skills and talent.
Interesting
right
points.
from the foundational age. So
Yeah.
talking about funding, it's very key. So we really must make sure that we conclude and get a sports fund established. It's one of the areas that I'll be paying a lot of attention to and will push very hard for us to get it done, because I know when we do it, it will go a long way to help our sports development.
You mentioned a very important area, which is the communities and ensuring that, you know, infrastructure goes there to the grassroots so that the development starts from bottom. So that our development obviously starts from bottom up rather than going to the top and thinking that we can start it from the top to the bottom. Enforceability also becomes a very key element, because obviously you'd have to do a lot of work with sister ministries, if I may put them that way, because of how intertwined their work is with sports and recreation. You've mentioned the tourism ministry, you've mentioned the local government ministry, you've also mentioned the education ministry. Now, enforceability with these district assemblies, where is the monitoring going to come from? You know, the expertise to do the monitoring so that we see proper enforceability, that, you know, they are drawing these funds and ensuring that these funds are being used, you know.
Well, of course, the enforceability will surely emanate from the National Sports Authority as it is now, or if in future we reform and create other agencies of interest, that agency will have the responsibility to so supervise and see to it that it is enforced. But generally, the Ministry of Sports and Recreation will have the oversight responsibility in seeing to it that this is done. Though local government will play an active role, these will play an active role, but the overall supervision and enforceability will surely rest with the ministry. But you see, I love to adapt the promotional approach. If district assemblies know that if we invest in sports and talents are identified and these talents get groomed and they become professional and they start earning so much, a percentage of their earnings, that of course per the rules that will come to the state, would also be directed to the original district where the person was spotted. Then the district will know that if we invest in sports, we stand to gain into the future. So they will be willing to invest, because if you invest at the grassroots level and the talents get identified from there, the record is kept. So this will be followed through, that when such an athlete becomes a professional and begin to earn so much, begin to earn in millions, and a percentage of that is drawn down to the state. A percentage of whatever comes to the state must go to the mother district. So it will be motivating districts to say, to build such facilities in their districts, because they know if we do it, and can you imagine that 3-4 talents identify reach professional level and they start earning big, and out of their big earnings something comes to us, and a year maybe we get about $100,000 USD. You can imagine what that will do to such an assembly. So I want us to look at the new laws that we will develop. The sharing formula will be such that the benefit will go all the way down. So athletes know that not they alone, or managers who would have taken over at a certain stage will know that when this person hits and reach the professional stage and begin to earn some money, it is not only you, the manager or the club at that stage, that will benefit, but the district that invested in sports, that led to the identification of that talent, must also benefit from the proceeds that will come out of that talent.
We've spoken about funding. We've spoken about the developmental block, and then you talk about infrastructure as well. There was a question that was placed before you, when you were going through your vetting about the number of astroturfs that we have in the country. Obviously, you've not started work, so that would have to look at later. But talk about that question just reminds all of us about the proper inventory of the infrastructure that we have available in our country. Those that are of international standard, those that meet standards, those that are substandard, and those that require work on them. What have you picked up so far?
Well, you're right when you talked about inventory. I believe that if we were so serious about inventory and follow-ups, we would not reach a stage where football authorities, CAF, would attempt to ban us from the use of our pitches for competitive football. So one, it's very important to take inventory and know and check those that are up to standard and those that are not. But even just using your eye to check, I can tell you that a number of the astroturfs constructed around don't meet standards. Okay, even in terms of size.
Yeah. So
for those that even meet in terms of size, maybe sometimes the material that is used may not be of what high quality, so it doesn't give the astroturfs the lifespan that is expected of them. So we would have to look into all these to make sure that standardization is key, so it can be used for the intended purpose. If for those ones that are not standard, if you can play the normal football or soccer on them, we don't have to push to use them for that, so that we could avoid injuries. If we have to use them for hockey and other sports that may not demand so much chase, let's do so and use them for that purpose, and not try to force to use them for even as Division 1 leagues to be played on them and so on and so forth when they are not up to standard.
How do you feel about this conversation about maintenance and how we just do not get it right when it comes to maintenance of our infrastructure? This is something that has come up several times. I mean, it was major, especially as we went through that failed attempt to qualify for the next Africa Cup of Nations.
Yeah, maintenance is a problem. Today, when you go to our various stadia, maintenance is disastrous. We don't maintain our facilities. That was why yesterday I was talking about infrastructure is good, but it's good to the extent that you can maintain it. And so even as we construct, we must have a maintenance culture. You remember another time, the Cape Coast Sports Stadium that we constructed, that we had maintained so much. When we left office, around March somewhere, I don't remember that particular year, but it was virtually run down, and run down to the extent that it could not be used for a game. And I remember the director of Regional Sports Authority was to be punished or was to be transferred by the minister, and then the NSA boss also said no, he will not accept, and so on and so forth. But it's just to tell you that the poor maintenance culture. But we need to bring back that, because if we maintain our facilities and maintain them well, their lifespan will increase. And when their lifespan increases, we tend to benefit so much from it. And so maintenance is very important. It gives a longer lifespan. Sometimes simple painting. Take, for example, Accra Sports Stadium. Everybody knows that the stadium is so close to the sea. So the material that you use in constructing must be material that will not react with salt. But if you use material that will react with salt and you leave it unmaintained regularly, it will deteriorate very, very fast. Basic things should tell you this. So today you go there and you have some of the ions are so rusty, some areas that they use cement that will react with the salt is damaged because we don't have the surface being maintained regularly. So maintenance culture is very key. If we have to sign maintenance contracts, if we have to get institutions and bodies to sponsor the regular maintenance of our sports infrastructure, we have to do so, because whatever we invest money into construct, it's not enough to award contracts and then say, I have done this, when you don't have a routine maintenance culture or arrangement in place. So we're going to look at, do an assessment, modernize our stadia and facilities, sports facilities, but also make sure that maintenance contracts are done and signed and kept to, that the routine is kept to. Another area we will be looking at is naming rights. There are a number of companies that, when called upon to help either refurbish, modernize some of our facilities, will be so
or probably
willing,
construct from ground.
they can construct from ground, will be willing to do so and get naming rights, so that they can, their name could be added to the facility. For example, what is wrong if you have, say, the military stadium that we have, the LWAC? If we have engagement with the military, the Minister for Defense, and it's agreed, and we get any of the corporation and say that, okay, multimedia LWAC stadium. If multimedia is into some product that they know, if we invest in this stadium and in its refurbishment, our name will be attached to it and we'll get the opportunity to sell our products. I believe that they will be doing so. And if they do that, then we know that we'll be organizing school sports there. And the young people will come there. It will be an opportunity for multimedia to also sell their products. So
just like the Emirates for Arsenal, the Etihad
exactly,
for Manchester City.
Exactly. Yeah. So something like that. So we have all the MTNs, the Telecells, all these, the Anglo Gold Ashantis and what have you. They are all here. And you can really engage them and have them come in to help, because government or the state would not be able to fund all these infrastructure alone and its maintenance. Government alone cannot do it. We have to bring on board some of these persons. And so tax rebates or exemptions, naming rights and what have you, that helps them to market, are all tools that we would be using to be able to bring in a lot of interventions and funding in our sports ecosystem.
If you're just joining us, we're still digging into the ideas for the sports sector. You know, we have quite some amount of work to do, and you know, we're going into 2025 with a major disappointment, knowing that we'll not be answering the roll call for the next Africa Cup of Nations. That has been talked about quite a bit. We have Ghana as a nation has that assignment of ensuring that we rehash the FIFA World Cup campaign. That's something we'll come to. Of course, the Minister designate has spoken about, you know, the Ghana FA, his views about, you know, Coach Attoh, you know, in relation to the team, and some
aspects of the management of the national team and how they relate to the ministry and all of that. Honorable Kofi Adams, you've spoken about, wanting to get things back on track regarding the true role that the National Sports Authority must play in the bigger scheme of things, where the Ghana FA now would have to work through them. And we all do observe and realize that the Ghana FA has had that route, obviously because they're able to get things done faster, and some of the demands of the sport and running the national teams require that sometimes we need to make some of these emergency arrangements. Have you started engaging? Are you engaging the necessary stakeholders? Obviously, if a set of people are used to something as smooth, and smooth in quotes, as smooth as having direct access to the ministry, and now they'd have to go one step back, obviously people will have some challenges aligning.
Yeah, you are right. It is good to have it easier with the topmost body rather than pass through a route. But that route has been created also to bring about best practices and transparency issues. So that is why it's important to start planning early and to factor the routes that you must go through as part of your planning process. So if you have an event that is going to come up in March, you don't wait till end of January or mid-February before you bring it up. And because you delay, you decide to run straight to the final authority instead of taking it through a body. And when the releases happens, sometimes that higher body may not have the opportunity to, in a way, supervise your expenditure or demand some kind of reports. Then things are kept in secrecy, no transparency, corruption sets in, and what have you. So it is my candid view that we must let the structures work, and all federations and associations will have to, until the law gets changed, they must route their request through the NSA. And we must not encourage a situation where some are made to be bigger than the NSA. When we do that, then supervision becomes difficult. The transparency issues become a problem. And so I'm not going to encourage that. We would have to work. But of course, in some situations where something urgently arises, we may allow it. But we must not, that should not become the norm. If it happens once, that's okay, but when it becomes the norm, every time that's how it is done, anytime for a particular, we wait last minute, then we rush, then we are not able to account properly, it will not help the growth of our sport.
Let's delve more into this idea of school sport. I mean, you are celebrated greatly by the students and old boys of Attoh College whom you taught, and obviously you saw a certain era of collegiate sports. One of my biggest disappointments with the establishment in the central region is the fact that, I mean, as a student of St. Augustine's, I remember that we contributed throughout my stay in St. Augustine's. We all contributed to having a central regional, stadium, which was situated at Attoh
College. Yeah.
But hey, it is still sand turfs and sand tracks. And now, obviously, the Cape Coast Stadium has come. That one also has its issues when it comes to, maintenance. The last time I saw it, it didn't look too good for me.
Well, you know what? For me, sports infrastructure, the more you have it, the better. So we cannot say because we have the Cape Coast Sports Stadium, the Attoh Schools and Sports Colleges Stadium should not be completed, because it can also serve as a good training ground. Can you imagine if we are hosting, say, a CAF competition and teams are going to be playing at the Cape Coast Stadium, and you have the Attoh or the colleges stadium in Attoh, and you have the other stadium in town, or at least up to a certain standard. Some it can serve as training pitches, and so we need to have more of that. So we would have to find a way to make sure that that facility is completed, so it can serve the purpose for which it was designed for. You know what? School sports is a big thing. And it is not the case that Ghanaians particularly have lost interest in sports. Because if you see how not just students, but old students, persons in the community, some of whom have not even gone to school before, the interest they show during school sports tells you we still love our sport. If there is no love at the higher level, maybe it is because of a certain thought or beliefs that we no longer care about the sport, that sport, that we are using it as a money-making means. So we need to change that narrative and to make sure that we do what is right. I was having an engagement with some of your colleagues earlier, and they were talking about some monies that are paid to some members of management committees of some associations. Yes. And I asked myself, is it right? Is it wrong? What's the justification? Have we really sat through to find out whether that is how it should be done? And we need to have a serious conversation about that. Whether that if we do certain things and people think that, oh no, the game is now a platform for some people to, as we say it in quotes, to chop our money. Maybe that may not be the case. If we open up, we may have a justification. But if you...
So what you are calling for is more conversations around it so we could reach a common point?
I think so. I think so. Because
yeah.
Does it really make sense that I play a game, 90 minutes plus, we win, I'm giving something, and another person who really didn't play is also giving same?
Okay, so Parliament organized some sessions and some hearings when Ghana failed to qualify or failed to perform at the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, and many conversations came up, many suggestions came up, and many views were expressed. Dr. Randiabe, who's the newly appointed Black Stars Management Committee chair, he's expressed his view about this. He says that when there is failure, the first port of call is these same persons who are managing the team. So when there is success or something drops into the kitty, why can't they also take part? That's the view he has expressed.
It's a good view, but the question is the quantum. I don't have a problem if they say for the time you've spent with the team and the rest, you are being given something as honoring your time. I may not have a problem. But if you take in same or sometimes even more than those who are playing the game, that's where I would have a personal problem. But we would seriously have an engagement around it. We seriously must have an engagement. It is true that they are blamed, but even as they get blamed, they continue to be in there. But the argument is, should they take same as the playing body, or in some instances even more than the playing body? Should that be the case? Well, if you people feel that and Ghanaians feel that that is justifiable, we can do so. But I personally think that we cannot justify such payments. It seems and look and sounds unconscionable for me, though they must get something, they must be honored, but possibly it should be the quantum and the level must seriously be looked at.
You mentioned, let's get into you and your personal interests for a bit. You mentioned a very big interest in boxing.
Yep.
You know, you obviously do watch some bouts from time to time.
Oh, sure, I do. I do when I have time. Sometimes I go back and watch the old. Of course, I must say that here in Ghana, I love all our boxers, and one thing is that I love them for the international prowess that they've brought in. So all of them are good boxers. The DK Poisons that we watched and also even read about, the Azuma Nelsons. Of course, those times you have to stay awake because especially when he's fighting in America, it's going to be the night there is dawn in Ghana.
Yeah.
So you needed to be awake so you don't mix anything, and we loved it. If you take me out, look, Mike Tyson, despite the challenges that he's had, he still remained for me one of my favorite boxers that I really love those times.
Are you always drawn to any specific Mike Tyson moment? You've spoken about his challenges, but then the days of brilliance in the ring, which of them would you immediately go to or watch over and over again as you've been?
I don't. Maybe I've not understood your question well, but look,
I'm talking about his days of greatness. I mean, some of the magical moments he produced. You know,
well,
I mean, if you're hooked on something, me for instance, I mean, if I'm hooked on something, I'll tell you one fight that I like to watch over and over again.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't really have that thing about maybe a particular fight that you want to watch again and again, but sometimes when I am on it, no matter what people say and talk about him,
yeah.
I'm still there, and he's one person that despite it's like my love and support for Man U, no matter where they are, whatever is happening, we are stuck.
You were here in Parliament when his name was brought up in a. If you just joined us, we're here having this conversation with Sports and Recreation Minister Designate, Honorable Kofi Adams. He's also Member of Parliament for Wem constituency. He says that issues of Manchester United and boxing are very key to him when it comes to interests and when he wants to unwind and relax.
Of course, locally, even though I've become minister that will oversee all sports, it can't take away my love and support for my Kotoko also. Some say, is it that I have love for red colors? I love red, but I hardly don red color.
How did you
I hardly don red color. But you see, for me, for the Kotoko, my dad used to be a fan of hearts.
Hearts of Oak.
Of folk.
I see.
And he was such a character that the only time you get to oppose him without anything is football. So we chose the opposite.
I see.
So that when they are playing, that one is a game that they are playing, and our team is doing well, and so we can have an opportunity to hit at you. Except that when Haas is not performing well, that day you will have all kinds of duties that he will assign you just so to keep you away. But it was beautiful. So I also grew up finding my siblings, the elderly ones, supporting Kotoko. So I also joined the fray of support, and it's been so till now, and I know that it will continue till death do us part. So
interesting. You look around the continent, and you look at the peers of Asante Kotoko. How do you feel about where they've gotten to in terms of their global appeal, the way administration is set up, their infrastructure, how well merchandising is going and everything, the general look and feel of the club?
Well, it's been more like a plague that has affected our football generally in the country, and so we cannot isolate just one and say that they've dropped. But I believe that we will pick up the pieces, and there's an indication that we picking up our pieces, and I believe that we will get there. Currently, of course, we are leading the Premier League, and I hope and pray that we'll stay strong like that all the way to the end, and we'll be able to lift the prestigious trophy once more that we had mixed for quite some time, and we need to do what is right. All of us will be engaging. We'll make sure all the circles will pick up and function. We must contribute financially to help our sports to grow. And as someone who is going to be overseeing sports, my interest, of course, will not be only the club that I have had for. I must make sure I encourage all the other clubs in the spirit of genuine competition, and as someone responsible, that all of us must show love. The House of Folk fans must show love to the House of Folk. The Ebusua Drafts must do same. The Legon Cities fans must do same. The Duana Stars, all of them. We must all show love to our clubs. And one thing we seriously must look into and try to encourage is that most of our clubs are actually sporting clubs. They are not just football per se. So can we look into and try to encourage them to also have other sports? Like, for example, Asante Kotoko can have even a tennis wing, because it's supposed to be a sporting club and not a football club. House of Folk is the same thing. So if it's a sporting club, that means that you can have all the other departments. So you are not left out. Maybe through that we can also help to generate what we describe as the lesser known or lesser funded sports. So,
and what you talk about is being done very well. This structure is being run very well in parts of North Africa, other parts of Africa, and Europe and the Americas as well. You see it.
So we would look at that, so that you don't only do football, but you have other sporting units that will be functioning. So it's something paid by their name and registration. That may be their intention. Maybe funding has been a challenge. Let's see how we can all together look at it to be able to grow sports in its totality in all the areas. Possibly it will help the competition in such areas also to be enhanced, and you can easily connect the football fan interest to all these other sports also, so that all the other lesser known, lesser funded sports can also have their own out of the bigger fan base of the footballing fan that these clubs would have.
Honorable Kofi Adams, you have a political mentor in the late, Jerry John Rawlings, who obviously was a big fan of Accra Hearts of Oak and also had a lot of boxing in him. Actually contributed greatly to the making of Africa's most successful boxer, Zuma Zum Zum Nelson.
Yep.
I'm still wondering how you were able to pursue an interest for, Asante Kotoko as against Hearts of Oak when your own dad was one and your political mentor was one.
Well, I was before we met, so I couldn't have shifted anyway. But you see, it tells you one thing about sports, that sports is something that can unite people. You may be supporting different clubs, but you can be together. You may be supporting different political parties, but you can be together. That is why we must help it grow. And one danger that I'm going to be working seriously to stop is the politicization of support base of our sports, especially the national teams. that we make it so partisan. It doesn't help, and it will not help. Let's allow our sports to be the sports that we have always known it to be.
What would you propose they do? I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, where some of the, the supporters groups are known to be NDC, some are known to be MPP. So once the NDC is in power, all of you go to the background and we get to support the national teams, take part in all the major programs, especially travels and all that.
Well, that is not the way. And it's going to be tough, but because of what the recent history of how things were handled. So I know I'm going to encounter some resistance, some challenges, but I would want to work very hard to make now luckily they've come under one umbrella. And so the umbrella leadership will be dealing with all the unions.
And that is the Ghana Supporters Union.
The Ghana Supporters Union.
Very well.
So it may help in handling them as one unit, because that spirit of oneness is needed. Because a part of the project that we'll have to do is to work on all who have interest in sports to have one heart and one mind towards our national teams especially. That I may not like you, but my spirit is positive even when you are in charge, because I want the team that you are in charge to win. But in a situation where, because I don't like you, when you are in charge, my prayer is that the team fails. Cannot help. So we have to embark also on a journey of uniting hearts and minds when it comes to the national team. Can we forgive? I think we need to. Are we going to be genuine? We must be genuine. Are we going to be open? We must be open. How can we do it? Let's do it in such a way that we must not start by seeing one as the problem and the other one the solution. All of us are part of the solution. That should be the approach. Nathaniel may be the one that has created the problem, but let's see him as part of the solution, not the problem. So if I approach you as if you are the problem, it may be difficult for us to resolve the problem, because you would also take a stand that, no, I'm not the problem. I think that I'm the solution, because all that you have been doing, which I see as the problem, you are doing it in the name of a solution. So I must not see you just as a problem. I must see you as part of the solution. Then we can see how far each of us can shift. Whether it is you who must move completely to where I am, or I must move to where you are, or all of us must move halfway to reach somewhere to be able to carry the conversation with the basis that we are all involved in getting a solution is the way to go. I'm not approaching my leadership with seeing problems. I'm seeing solutions and seeing everybody as part of the solution. But it is only after a certain levels of opportunity is given, and you still think that you must remain where everybody thinks it is the problem that we are trying to deal with, then that one you'll be treated as a problem and be left alone. And when I pray that nobody behaves that way, we would all see ourselves as part of the solutions, so we can work together to achieve it. And once it is achieved, all of us will celebrate. Not that when we see you as a problem and we achieve a success out of that solution, then you stay somewhere, then you also begin another line of cycle of prayer starts, that I'm praying for them to fall again, I'm praying for them to fall again because they saw me as a problem and I've been isolated and left behind. No, we want to carry everybody along, because it is sports we are talking about. It is our nation and our country we are talking about.
I've observed something which I believe is very beautiful and is healthy for national cohesion, after, this electioneering process and, the swearing in of the president, all these appointments and, eventual start of work for public officers or officers of state. and that is the smooth handover and the public show of support by outgoing, officers and for incoming officers. I'd give a few examples. I saw Honorable Samir Wuku, the former, Director General of the National Lottery Authority. He welcomed, the newly appointed director. They had a public sitting with the top management and some of the staff. It was a beautiful thing. We saw what happened at the YEA as well. Malik Bazintale and Kofi Adams, So we've seen quite a number of them. Now, yesterday I realized that the immediate past minister was establishing a point that he did a lot. He's left you a lot of good infrastructure. It took him a while to ask the question because of the movement and all of the murmuring on the floor. But have you had conversations? Have you had any interactions about what lies ahead of you so far?
With the immediate past minister?
Yes.
Oh, of course. He's a member of parliament, and so we've been engaging. We've had a number of informal engagements, and we will continue to do so. That's what I told you, that I don't see anybody from a point of failure, or I don't see anybody from a point of being the problem. I see everybody as being part of the solution. Even where you failed is learning. So you will be able to guide the next person if I create an environment for you to know that I really didn't see you as a failure, but I saw you as having a challenge. You'll be very much willing to tell me that, no, I passed this route, and that's how I fell into a hole. So use the other. Or if you go this route, you will never see a door. The door is not here because I've used it, go to the dead end, and I didn't find a door. And by the time I got back and used the right route, it was so late. But if you don't have a certain positive engagement from a perspective of being part of the solution, they will tell you, well, you said you can do it, just walk and let's see. And maybe you go walking the same line they have walked, only for you to hit there and there is no door. So that is why I've so far been consulting broadly, so I can collect as much as I need to. Then when I set the ball rolling, the ball will roll till it gets into the hole that they will say victory has been chalked for Ghana. That is my objective. And so we would continue to have the engagement, not just with the immediate Minister for Youth and Sports who just left office, but talked about the beauty of what had happened. I think that is the essence of the transitional act that we developed after the 2009, when we saw how challenging that transition was. We decided to develop an act, the Transitional Act, which was applied in 2017 when the NDC lost power. It was quite unfortunate that we nearly had rough situations, even with the presentation of a budget, votes, whilst we wait for Appropriation Act to be passed. There needed to be some vote in advance, and it was so challenging until 3rd of January before that was laid in Parliament, which should not have been the case. Usually that is done before end of year. Unfortunately for this time, we didn't see it that way. But well, all the same, we still have seen through the transition, and we are carrying on. Some of the officers that you mentioned made it a bit beautiful. So when you look at that beauty part, then you can ignore the rough things that happened even before this beauty has been shown by the officers that you mentioned. So it gladdens my heart that some of these situations are happening. Let's carry it. Let it not be that we're doing it for the photos and we'll go behind and do other things. Let's be genuine, because if Ghana does better, it does better and good. It's good for all of us, and all of us, our situation will improve. I've been telling some sports media persons that, look, when our sports grow, you also in the sports media, you grow. If our league is doing well, you would also have many more stories to report on from different angles. if our leagues are not doing well, and therefore we are not having good players, even to be able to form, we will not qualify for the chance, and we will not qualify for the AFCONs. And you too will not have opportunity to be able to go anywhere to be able to report. Or even if you do go, your country is not featuring for you to report for your country. You'll be reporting about other countries. And so it's good for us to critique, it's good for us to do all those things, but it's also good for us to highlight the good that is happening equally, so that when you weigh the two, we will know that you have talked about the good, and so when you critique the bad, there will be some fair balancing.
Let's talk about key areas of I mean, once you hit the ground running, like we've said, I mean, you've gone through the process, so now we're just awaiting the next stage, which will be your approval, and then work begins. Now, key parts of the manifesto, looking at getting these base salaries for our footballers in the Premier League, so that it helps to retain talent as much as possible, so people don't find themselves going. On Thursday, I heard you talk about players who find themselves in some unorthodox destinations just because they have to go and make ends meet. So that one is there. Infrastructure is there. The story of the National Sports College in Winneba is there. Which key areas, I mean, just like His Excellency the President has set a 120-day agenda for himself, are you seeing yourself doing something similar where you probably will place one of them first and say, let's clear this off the way, let's do this in 10 days, 3 months, 4 months, get it out of the way and tackle the next? How are you going to go about it?
Well, clearly, considering what is ahead of us, our playing pitches is key, so that we cannot have a situation where CAF may, or even FIFA, in the case of the World Cup qualifiers, would ban us that our home matches will have to be played somewhere else, where we need to be running around to try to convince them using diplomatic means. We do not want that to happen. So immediately, as a matter of agency, we will have to do proper assessment with the NSC and appropriate staff of our pitches that we intend to use for our qualifiers. Then we will extend beyond that to see what we can do for the goodness of the nation in terms of our pitches. Along the line, we must, because we need to have a lot more professionals to handle various sports disciplines across the country. The issue of a sports university can no longer be delayed. The processes must begin now about converting the Winneba Sports College into a modern sports university with campuses straddling the country. And of course, immediately the Boteman facility, which was used for the All-African Games 2023 played in 2024, would become a satellite campus for such a university. And so these are things that we look at. We talked the sports fund discussions. It's just a matter of picking what had happened in the past and to make sure that we clean it up and push it through. Then out of such funds, they promise to give some allowances to our players, especially the registered players at the Premier League, should not be overly delayed. It must be implemented as soon as possible.
Well, if you're just joining us, we have had quite a bit of a conversation here with the Minister for Sports and Recreation designate, a rechristened ministry, and one man who's also had a very long run in the political space, getting the opportunity to come and lead. He's shared a bit of the vision with us. He's been very vocal about key points within the manifesto, which we've gone through here on this show and on all of our other platforms over the period as well. Now we're looking at other areas, other details, and how we can get all of these sorted and achieved so we could get sports back and running. In the true spirit of nationalism and being nationalists, I would also want to see Ghana qualify for the World Cup. You've spoken about our role as sports media and how our work is further enhanced when you see your flag represent among many other nations, in these. Now, in sport, it's a very simple thing. I mean, worst case scenario, there should be a draw. But in this particular scenario of qualification for the World Cup, it's either you're going or you're not going. After the group stages, there will be one more opportunity, which will, increase the number, finally to about 10 from Africa. So you've spoken very extensively about how much of a disappointment it will be. But there are two possibilities. We can go through and we might end up not also going.
That's true. You are right. If you look at our state now, there are many who think that our football has reached a point, whether they think that the seed had decomposed and didn't germinate. So we must look for new seeds that will be watered appropriately so they can germinate. But we will still try to make sure that we get the seed germinating. That's the strategy that we want. That we did not qualify for AFCON, we did not qualify for CHAN. And so people feel like there's something completely wrong with our football. We'll do our best. We'll work very hard from the point of government, from what must be done, in improving player morale and beefing up the technical processes to make sure that we are ready to be able to win our matches in order that we qualify for the World Cup. So we will erase this failure to qualify for AFCON especially off our minds. If we don't succeed, it will be disastrous for our sports, especially football. And so as the minister responsible, when finally approved by Parliament and sworn in, would have to embark on an agenda together with the FA officials to see how we can motivate the playing body by one, being fair to them, by psychologically psyching them up to know what is ahead of us. I believe that they too love their career and they love their country. And we'll see what it is that we can do. We really will do everything possible as a government to support the team to be able to qualify. We only will urge them that they also play and the technical team do all the necessary understanding of the game and do whatever changes and strategy that they must play to give us the goals and to give us the wins in all our matches, the remaining. Once we do that, well, we would be there.
How broad have your engagements been? At least you had maybe a day and a half to add more to your preparation for vetting, which I believe, and on the face of all of it, went very smooth. How broad have your consultations been?
I've broadly consulted. I've spoken to former ministers of sports. I've spoken to administrators of football and other sports. I've spoken to some former players. I've spoken to just some senior persons with interest in sports. I've spoken to supporters who have followed our sports and football also, and it's been good. It's been good. I've spoken to some persons with just business interest. They too I have spoken to, because we are leaving nobody out. We want to make sure that we consult broadly, so all shades of opinion it will be represented in my consultation. So when it gets to decision-making point, you are making decisions very well informed.
What would you term as the common denominator running through, or the common theme running through all of these, all of these consultations that you aside the everyday chorus of funding, that one is known, but did you find any very interesting thoughts being expressed about the future of sport? How much enthusiasm is there? How much positivity do you see? And how much naysaying as well did you observe during all of this?
So far, for all those that I have spoken to, they have been quite enthusiastic and very hopeful that we can pick it again. Some speaking so from the point of view that I can do something. Others also from the point of view that the talent is there, the experiences are there, and we can pull a team together to be able to help us achieve that. So from whatever angle it is, for me, it's been quite positive. It's been quite positive, and I am happy for all the ideas that have been shared. None of them said that it is not doable. All of them think that it is doable, but we just have to act together and we will get there. Take the right decisions. If somebody must be made to take a back seat, that person must understand that we cannot toy with our nation in the name of giving you a chance to prove yourself. That kind of approach. So we will see how we get there. I believe that we will succeed. Yeah, it shall be well. So I'm sure we should be ending our
in a few minutes
now,
yes,
so that
in a few minutes. So
I think this will be your last. Ask this as your last question, so I can.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So that
go
you can.
to
Yeah. Now, let's talk about those days for you as a fan. Today, you are sitting there in the saddle, leading, administrative work and all of that. Let's just quickly talk about the, these moments. You told us about South Africa 2010. You were there when Ghana lost that game to Uruguay. Walk us through the day. I mean, how the whole day started, your travel to the stadium, the conversations, the confidence that you had that was punched.
Well, there was a lot of, when you qualify for a World Cup and you're going, once you've qualified, you think that you can also bring the cup home. So despite sometimes the odds against you. So we went there with a lot of confidence. It started so well. The route to the place, the Vuvuzelas, that was the period that the Vuvuzelas came out. The Vuvuzelas everywhere. The joy of it. We got to the stadium. We found our way and took our seats. We really enjoyed the game, and that opportunity came for the goal, and the gentleman did what he did with his hand, turning it into a penalty that was equally converted. So I sat there and realized that, well, after some time, then it dawned on me that, well, maybe we were not meant to win. Otherwise, the guy would not have used his hand, considering the fact that he is a professional player. And it was not like he was falling and his hand got to the ball. He actually caught the ball. He actually did that. And for a professional player of his caliber to do that just could not be explained, because it was unthinkable. It was really unthinkable that we've had instances where we were told a hand, the God of hand was using pushing a ball. Yes. Yeah, the hand of God was using pushing a ball to enter the net that was so close to the head that during that time we didn't have the VARs to be able to further check whether it was truly the hand that was used or it was the hand was used in supporting the head to be able to head the ball in or what have you. We've had that. But to actually catch the ball, turn to a goalkeeper.
No, but Honorable, did you get the chance to watch that Maradona video? He used his hand. He did it in a very clever way. I mean,
not very well. But of course, during that time, the technology that existed today didn't. To enable the referee have a second
and various angles,
second view, and to even have so. It's okay. There are some who have raised concerns that look, whilst VAR is good, it's also come to take out the joy of the game. That sometimes a goal is scored and you have to be waiting for some seconds or minutes to have a confirmation.
That's what they say. What about you? How do you feel about VAR?
For some who think that the referees too have become corrupt, there are some persons who think that we must even introduce it everywhere, including Ghana, to every level, so that at least refereeing the issue of people accepting goals or rejecting goals that are genuine and what have you will be taken out of our competition. So it's a good thing, but in some instances you see that you want to celebrate, but you have to wait
before celebrating.
Before celebrating. And when finally you are told that is a goal, the celebration is not the same as when it's immediately the referee handling the match can just whistle and say it is a goal or it is not a goal. You know your fate right from the word go. But technology must be accepted, and maybe we live with it.
And you had the opportunity to play sport professionally. Which of them would it be?
I wish I have the muscles. I would have done boxing, possibly because I love it. But sometimes when I sit and I'm watching it with my wife, the way she behaves, that why will people allow themselves to be hit and punched
that much?
That much, and you will be bleeding from all parts of your... Well, so I've heard one boxer says that there's no way he will allow any of his children to
get into boxing.
Well, I thought it wasn't the right thing to do. If they had the skills and the talent, you could have allowed them. But maybe, just maybe, because of growing up, the poor investment, the poor environment that he grew with before becoming a champion is what he possibly is relying on. But if we can really improve that sport and make facilities available, it's a good thing to do. And
you spoke about Azuma as well.
Yes.
Can you recall your first encounter with him?
Can I remember? Where was I?
Because of course you lived through an era where
those times you would. That was long before I got into
the celebrity, the superstar who brought a limousine to town.
Yeah, to town. Those ones were. We were all looking around to find him one time or the other. Those who make positive comments, those who make the negative comments, all of them. But I was looking at one of his, I don't know whether it was in Ngwa or it was on Legon campus or where. But those times it was even black and white television. So you wouldn't get the good. Color TV was not really available today, and the black and white, the big one with the big back. Our
camera technicians and my producer did not meet that era, unfortunately. I got to see
the one that you have chopped. You have chopped the TV and it's become so slim and then sleek, and they didn't see the one with the big back. And then instances, you go to the villages and where there wasn't any power, you are lucky you have this battery, car battery, that was used to power the television. And one village center, that's what is available. They will bring it, and all of you would have to assemble to watch. We've gone through things before, but God has seen us to this point. So I really thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And we wish you well. We're looking forward to the eventual confirmation, and then work will begin. There's a lot to be done.
Sure.
And we're hoping to call on you sometime soon, so we have some more conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much once again.
So
we've been having this conversation with the Minister for Sport and Recreation designate, who's just gone through his vetting, and of course we're looking forward to what will happen, and then work gets done soon. Thank you so much, and of course